Coming up on By the Book, join host Dorothy Spalding and today's leading authors with in-depth interviews, stories, and discussions, offering unique insight into the authors, their influences, and their latest works. Tune in today as Dorothy welcomes Vanessa Miller. Be sure to watch By the Book.
It's great.
How did you do it?
By the book.
Where did you find that?
Did you see By the Book?
Yeah, it's a great show. By the book.
New releases and authors?
I thought it was a great read.
I think I'm going to buy the book.
It's the best.
Did you get it?
You should.
Do it by the book.
The best authors.
New releases.
Let's watch.
By the Book.
Welcome to By the Book. I'm your host, Dorothy Spalding, and we have two novels for you today. But before we start, my guest is Vanessa Miller. And Vanessa, I hear all kinds of stuff about you. But why don't you tell the people?
Okay, well, first off, as you said, I'm a novelist. I have about 10 books out already.
10 books?
Yes, I do. But this particular series of the book that you have is called the Second Chance at Love series. And the first book is Yesterday's Promise. We're dealing with women in ministry in the Second Chance at Love series. I've been writing since I was a kid, really, but my first book didn't come out until 2003.
So when you were a child, you just liked to write?
I would write all the time. I always knew I wanted to be a writer. I tell people now I can't remember a time when I didn't have pen to paper. It has just been something that I needed to do. Stories just flow from me for some reason.
Well, that was a God gift to you.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I definitely believe that my writing is a gift from God, and I didn't always want to glorify God with my gift, but thankfully God led me to a path where I accepted Him into my life.
How did that happen?
That was several years ago.
Several years? Now,
yeah.
as a child, did you go to church?
You know, I would go off and on. I was not, and now looking back, I could see this path that I was on, because my family was not necessarily a church-going family, but there were times when I would get on a church bus and go to like this a summer camp that was for church. There were different things that I would do where I would put myself in a church. It wasn't that my family said you had to go, but I was not in church at all for several years. However, every New Year's Eve, I would end up in church, and it was this one.
That's a shock.
Correct. It was this one particular church that I went to every New Year's Eve, because I said, okay, I would go out to nightclubs just about every day of the week, but
New Year's
Eve, I said, I'm not going out to a nightclub. I'm going to be in church, and this went on for several years, and then finally, I remember my sister got saved, and then she bought me a Bible for Christmas. This was 1994. And I laughed at her, and I talked about her, and I told my friends, can you believe she bought me this Bible for Christmas? You know, and I'm thinking, you know, what does she think I'm going to do with this? And this is the way God works. It was January, the next week or so after, I had a nightmare. A total nightmare.
What was
it? It was actually a nightmare where I felt like I was in the pits of hell. And see, my life had just been, at that point, I was kind of depressed because a close friend of mine had just died, and we were both 26, and I couldn't understand how someone's heart could just stop on them at 26. And it would just be over. And so God was working on me, though, leading me closer to Him. And like I said, she bought me this Bible. Then I have this nightmare. So I call her up. It was about 5 in the morning, and I'm going, so what are you doing? She was asleep, of course. but I said, you want to read the Bible?
5 in the morning?
But it's the same Bible that I laughed at her for buying me. Yes. Now I want to read it because I'm scared half to death. And so the next Sunday, though, I end up in church. And it was the same church that I had that I had gone to every New Year's Eve. I had no idea why I attended this church every New Year's Eve, but I always felt like these people were so nice. They always loved on me and hugged me when I came in the door. And it was that Sunday, January 14th, 1994, that I fell on my knees and gave my life to the Lord. And I haven't looked back since. And so it's been since
No
that.
more clubs, no more.
No more clubs, no more any of that. It has been, you know, a life lived for God. And it has been since that time, because I had been writing before then, but it was after that point where I said, okay, now I need to understand how my writing can benefit God. And that's when I began to write Christian fiction. So, and it took to 2003 was when my first book was published.
And you do playwrights as well?
Yes, I've written several plays. The last production I did was based on my second novel, which is Abundant Rain. And so I'm hoping to do another one soon, but I haven't, you know, you actually have to write the play to actually get it produced, and I haven't written it yet.
Yeah, right. But I always thought, wouldn't it be cool to write a play? Because I think that's just really neat. I would write one about Lucifer falling out of heaven and how he bothers all the people on earth today, and how he's just a wimp under our feet, but we make him so big.
Yeah, I think people enjoy productions like that because it's visual. And it's another tool that you can use to show people the power of God, where someone might not pick up a book, but they'll go to a stage play. And so just different tools to reach the people that God wants us to reach.
I think what God has done in your life is awesome. I mean, for your sister to go buy you a Bible for Christmas. But the thing that really amazes me is you're in a nightclub every night, and on New Year's Eve, when the biggest night of the clubs are,
Correct.
you decide to go to church, and you're not even a Christian.
Correct.
Did you go with somebody?
No, I would go by myself. It was the place that I said I have to be in church on New Year's Eve. To me, I couldn't even fathom being in a nightclub on New Year's Eve, even though that was the time people went and they really enjoyed.
Had the big parties.
Yes, but it just didn't seem right to me.
That's amazing.
But that was God's path for me, and that was how he was leading me to where he wanted me to be. And so, I mean, that's why I write the stories that I write now, because I understand after living it how God leads us closer and closer to him. It's still our choice. We have to choose whether we're going to accept salvation. But I believe that God has a path for each person that will lead you closer to him, and you then have to decide. And so I write different stories like that to show this leading. And so that my books have been about redemption a lot of the times. Now, this particular series is not necessarily about redemption, because they are already Christians and they are in the ministry and working in the ministry.
Well, yesterday's promise, let's start with that one, because I read a little bit about this, and I thought it was your life, and it was her life.
Yes.
But tell me about this girl.
Well,
Yesterday's promise.
Melinda Johnson, she knows that she is called to the ministry. All her life, she's worked with her father in the ministry, and she's helped to build up his church, believing that one day she would become the pastor of this church. However, she was engaged to a man who did not believe that women should preach. And he is the person that her father brings back and allows him to become pastor over that church. And this is a story of how these two people come back into each other's lives, and how they then reconcile this thing about whether women should preach or not. And it is also their love story.
So the father chooses her fiance instead of her.
Correct.
And so her fiance is out of the picture with her, right? For a season.
Yes, for a season.
And then how did she feel about the father?
Oh, she was pretty upset with both of them, her father and her ex-fiance, because this was her legacy, and it has been denied to her simply because she is a woman. And so that was something that she couldn't understand it, and she was having a hard time dealing with that. But then the book begins to show both sides of this story.